In a town with a history of great writers, I have always loved Neil Steinberg's work, and I'm happy to have him on the show today because he wrote a column the other day which, is right where I live. And that is, any politician who doesn't understand, A, that you have an obligation to work with the media, but B, isn't smart enough to work with the media, probably ought to get out of the job. Neil Steinberg joins us from the Sun-Times, and you should read Neil every day. And if you don't, I want to know from your mom. That's all. So how are you, first off?
I'm good. I've walked the dog. I'm having my first sips of coffee, blinking into the morning darkness or sunlight or whatever's going on outside. So not so bad. House didn't blow away. I did cower in the basement a bit. They send you this message like, go seek shelter now. And then you're disappointed that the tornado doesn't hit. It's like, hey, I feel stupid sitting here. I want to go. And then my wife, of course, she's holding the dog. And, I think there's too many cautions in life.
There is.
You don't know which ones are real.
Well, we talked about it last hour. Tom Skilling's been a friend forever, but I think it's time for him to admit he controls all of this. And
this is, obviously God and nature are rising up to be like every form. It's snowing and it's 70 and it's 20 and it's tornadoes and blizzards and it's obviously Mother Nature in her full panoply of wonder bidding him adieu. That's clear.
It's a message he can't leave. So, Nope. All right. So anyway, you wrote a piece the other day, and I've certainly been bitching about this on the air, but there's a new way that politicians have become cowards.
I don't know if this is injured pride. I should say.
I don't think it is.
The Rahm Emanuel would have you in for coffee and talk about what he was doing like it was important. And even Lori Lightfoot, which was certainly amateur hour. She had a certain kind of dry Buster Keaton humor going on, and she was dealing with COVID, and love her or hate her, she kind of had a personality going on. But Brandon Johnson is just sort of a mystery. Okay, he came out of nowhere. I know what's going on. It's what I call with Jane Byrne the curse of the amateur. Okay, so there actually is a learning curve in being a government official like anything else. You'd never choose a dentist the way you chose Brandon Johnson. Oh, here's someone who knows nothing about what he's going to do, but he supplies powerful friends, so let's elect him. And he's handsome and he speaks well and all that sort of thing. So, I feel sorry for him because he obviously just blundered into this job and woke up. And, when I tell people I haven't spoken to him yet, I say, well, I did talk to Stacey Davis Gates after he cut out the middleman.
Right. That's a good point. Neil, even professional athletes get media training. Clearly, there's no evidence of that here. Tell everybody, there was an instance most recently. And we've all seen the press conferences where he's talking about himself in the third person or just, not answering any question that's posed to him. But the story about how, and your column starts off with this, about the editorial board meeting, and someone was stunned to learn that those are on-the-record meetings.
How do you do that? Sometimes people will write the paper and then they'll try to claw their letter back. And I say to them, what expectation of privacy do you have writing a newspaper? Okay, so if someone told a 10-year-old you're going to the editorial board of the Chicago Sun-Times, are they really going to think, no one's going to know about this, right? And also, what do you think they're doing there? That you're discussing the problems faced.
Well, it's insane. I said this the other day on the air. I said, if it's off the record, it's a phone call. It's not a conversation or an interview.
Where other press is invited, by the way.
You heard the news you just had. Okay, this is not a flaw with him. This is a feature. Okay, you're getting rid of ShotSpotter, which is a very significant part of law enforcement. You would think you would tell your police superintendent that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so he's fine. It's so. And then of course, just look at that one issue. Okay, if it's we want to get rid of it because it's bad, but we have to keep it because we need it. Like what? And let's pay more for 9 months than we did for it's one mistake after another. Again, I've never met the man. I don't dislike him. I just feel sorry. It's like, you see him there, deer in the headlights. And then every once in a while he does it like, well, I'm worried about my family and my wife. And you want to say, well, didn't you have a family and a wife when you took the job? I've never done that. I've the paper never called. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm married.
Right.
When did you realize that?
Well, he's had these moments, right? He's had that moment where he said, I'm doing all this while I got a black wife and black kids on the West Side. And I had to go home, and I found out, well, I've got a white wife and white kids, and I still have to go to work tomorrow. What does that have to do with anything?
Well, what it is, I mean, Lori Lightfoot did the same thing. Here she is, a $1 million a year equity partner at Mayer Brown and Platt, a former, and suddenly she's pretending she's like some pigtailed child being abused by people. You know, at one point you want to say, hey, grow the
F up. Yeah, grow the F up.
And stop using your children as a human shield to deflect the criticism that you yourself have earned by being an incompetent.
Right.
And I hate to be so strong about that, but it's something. And look, other politicians are the same way. They're very risk averse. They're very. I mean, I hate to say, I was at a law firm yesterday with Afghani immigrants, and we could take pictures of the immigrants, but we couldn't take pictures of the lawyers. Okay, and there was something so sad about that. I'm like, here's someone who came over, was crowding into fording a river to get here, and they have nothing, and they're confident and bold, and I can use their, and you're here. Yeah, there's something. I didn't say it because I was glad they invited me. I didn't want to be rude to my hosts, but there's. And maybe it's the internet. Maybe people, they just want to control their own output, and they don't want to have any sort of intermediary. And I kind of understand that.
But the thing is, we live in a time where we've never been more self-centered and never been more agenda-based. And here's a bulletin. The vast majority of the public doesn't care. They care about you in the moment. They need to care about you, and that's it. But when it comes to the governor, when it comes to the board president, the Cook County board president, when it comes to the mayor, you have to talk to the public, and you cannot allow that to happen. Last election night, a year ago, we saw Governor Pritzker with bicycle racks placed in a semicircle in front of him so reporters couldn't get close. What the hell is that?
Well, again, he was a rich guy who sort of, was looking for something to do. And, he's a wonderful governor. I like him. But, again, I haven't spoken to him either. I actually had lunch with him once when he was sort of in the woods and just trying to figure out what to do with his life. And he's, not a bad person. I love everything he's doing, kind of making us the blue resistance in the middle of this sort of sea of red. So he, again, but this is the thing. This is a human relationship sort of business. Daley was the same way. I remember seeing him at an editorial board meeting, and I don't know what sort of rude, what suburb do you live in kind of thing he was doing. And I remember narrowing my eyes and looking at him and saying, Rich, I wrote your mother's obituary, and I wrote your wife's obituary, and I actually wrote yours too when the time comes. So why don't you cut me some slack?
Yeah, right.
And I know that's ego. But on the other hand, if there was some professional that you knew was going to stand at your grave and bury you and tell people who you were, I'd sort of make that phone call, And I've lived, with Lori, I'd say, look, let's have, you smoke. I thought she'd smoke a cigar. I said, you smoke cigars. Let's go to the roof of City Hall. Look at the beehives there.
Have a cigar and talk.
Have a cigar. Who wouldn't want to do that? I go. And when you open that door, you learn so much. As a reporter, I once had a reader say, "Hey, I'm going to visit a 106-year-old woman. You want to come with me?" And one part of me said, well, no, actually, ever talked to someone today? But I said, if you don't go, you don't find out. And she turns out to be Edith Renfro Smith, who's the first black graduate of Grinnell.
Wow.
And she met Earhart, and Herbie Hancock taught her daughter to play piano. And I couldn't make that up in 1,000 years. But, and I give myself credit because I schlepped to her nursing home knowing nothing and just found out. And if, again, that's my job. I'm not complaining.
No, but that's the way you should approach it. And that's the way the life ought to be lived in the public. Listen, when you're elected, you ought to be interested in commingling with the public and in making sure the public knows what you're doing.
Especially if your message is transparency.
Yeah, but by the way,
curiosity, right? You would think that he would want to talk to someone like me who's been on the scene for 40 years and looked at all these different mayors and written about them and thought about them, and maybe you would take 10 flipping minutes and have that cup of coffee. I don't understand what he's doing. Look, again, if it was
but you hit on it. You hit on it. He doesn't understand what he's doing. I firmly believe that's absolutely right.
He's just a ventriloquist dummy, getting perched on the CTU's knee. And I like the CTU. I like Karen Lewis, I don't, this is the thing. It's turning the cops are the same way. Okay. The firefighters are the same. I'm always saying to them, you're heroes if you cooperated with us on stories about what heroes you were. But, when you leave, and that was the point of my column, you, as a communicator, if you leave a vacuum, someone else is going to fill it.
And as you wrote, you're not going to like what it says. All right. Well, you got to come back. I know you're busy. You got a life. Too bad. You got to come back because we've barely scratched the surface here. But
anytime, Steve. I love talking to you.
You're the best. Neil Steinberg, Sun-Times. Nailing it.